to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Gray?
Present.
Trustee Caprio?
Present.
Trustee Rogers is absent. Trustee Sweet?
Present.
Trustee Maxey-Turkey?
Present.
Brian Beard absent. Mayor Yukish.
Present, and Brian will be here as he's running right down Spring Street. He's on his way back. Are there any amendments to the agenda? I need a motion to approve the minutes of September 27th, 2017. So moved. Trustee Gabriel.
I'll second.
Trustee Squeeze. Discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Maxey-Turkey?
I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
Motion carries. There is one.
Mayor, you need to vote, that's only three.
Aye. Yes. Okay. There is one amendment to the agenda.
Mayor, we need a motion on the agenda to go into executive session.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay.
We are going to have an executive session after item K for the purpose of discussing litigation file CS 120-2C12. That's all. Need to vote on those? Okay.
I'll second.
Discussion? Executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
We'll keep it short. I need a motion to approve the minutes of October 11th, 2017.
So moved.
Trustee Gray.
I'll second.
Trustee Maxey-Turkey. Discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers? Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Maxey-Turkey?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're going to go to the accounts payable. John, this will be you.
No, Mayor, I usually report on the treasurer's report.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve the accounts payable.
I so move.
Trustee
I'll second.
Sneeze, Trustee Turkey. Discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Maxey-Turkey?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, reports and communications from the mayor and other officers. Mayor's report. It's going to be trick or treat on next Tuesday. So it is set to be from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Tuesday, October 31st in the village of Glen. For a list of Halloween safety tips, please visit www.homerglenillinois.org. Be careful because the kids are going to be all over. I'm not sure how the weather's going to be, but please pay attention to what you're doing and have fun on Halloween. Go to the trustees. Trustee Gray, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report tonight.
Thank you, Trustee Gray. Trustee Tracy.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Trustee Tracy. Trustee Squeeze.
Thank you, Mayor. I do not have a report this evening.
Thank you, Trustee Squeeze. Trustee Gabriel.
I also do not have a report.
That's all right. We might have a 15-minute meeting. Village Treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor. I have the treasurer's report of cash and investments at September 30, 2017. It's the 5th month of the fiscal year 2018. It shows the general fund with cash and investments of $5,308,260.99. The special event fund had a balance of $110,746.06. The environment fund had a balance of $77,395.88. The motor fuel tax fund had a cash and investment balance of $3,632,540.88. Park and Recreation Fund had a balance of $3,386,543.98. The Debt Service Fund had a balance of $2,852,809.82. The Capital Project Fund had a cash and investment balance of $1,069,282.79. The EAB Tree Replacement Fund had a balance of $385,503.39. And the last fund, the Capital Project Bond Fund, had a cash and investment balance of $14,850,190.45 for a grand total, all funds, $31,673,274.24. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, John. Very nice. Any questions for Mr. Sayers? Treasurer? That's it. No? Just it. Clerk?
Thank you, Mayor. The clerk's office is getting ready to send out the renewals for businesses. We have about 300 commercial and 200 home-based businesses within the village, and we expect that to be completed by the end of the year. We will also be doing the video gaming renewals. That's it.
Thank you. Village Attorney?
No report, Your Honor.
Public safety officials?
I have one item, as part of the Heritage Park project. Next week, they're going to be constructing, making the sanitary sewer connection in 151st Street. Due to the depth of the existing sanitary sewer, it's approximately 17 feet deep. They're going to need to close 151st Street for one day. This will take place probably either the first or the second. We should know within the next day or so which day that will be. They are going to be putting up the message boards both at 151st and Cream and 151st and Parker Road. Everything will be accessible from those intersections, but the connection will take place roughly at our east entrance. And like I said, that will be closed for one day.
Okay. Thank you. Joe?
Nothing.
Last village manager, he's out of town. Heather, is there anything? Thank you. Next is public comments.
Nobody signed up.
Okay. Next is going to be acceptance and receival of the village audit. Is there a motion to accept and receive the fiscal year ending April 30th, 2017 village audit?
So moved.
Trustee Capriello?
I'll second.
Trustee Sweet? Discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, I have Ed McCormick from the City of Salvador. He could go over it. He's typically does a recap of the audit and report on a very good year on the books, April 30, 2017.
Don't we always?
We've been very fortunate. Doesn't seem like a year, but it's been a year since Ed was here to present last year's audit. So take it away.
And I'll try to keep with the theme of the meeting and keep it short and sweet. So hopefully you've all had a chance to take a look at the report for the year ended April 30th of 17. It's a comprehensive annual report, as you've done every year since the village has been in existence. This is would be the 15th, or I guess this would be the 16th submission. And we've been fortunate to receive the award for every year from the beginning. There's three sections. The introduction section starts out with a transmittal letter, giving more of an overview of the economics and kind of what the the area is that the village is operating in. There's a copy of last year's certificate that was successful in the award, and this one will be submitted, and we believe it will qualify as well. List of the board and organization chart. And then moving into the financial section is the on page Roman numeral 10 is our contribution to this this packet, and that's our independent audit report, which basically we're telling the reader of the statement that these are your financial statements. You as management and the board as the highest level of management are responsible for the presentation and preparation of the statements. As auditors, it's our responsibility to perform tests, look at transactions, and test documents, basically determine, can we achieve enough audit evidence to make an opinion, and that last line on that page indicates that we feel that our audit procedures were sufficient to form an opinion, and that opinion's on the following page where we feel that these statements refer to present all material respects to financial position and result of operations as of and for the year on April 30th of 17. What is referred to as an unmodified opinion, so basically these statements are, in our opinion, appropriate as presented, and you should feel confident in looking at those in all material respects. There's some other information included in the report. As whatever we could extend our audit procedures to, we did. Some of the things they're talking about what's going on in the current year, and obviously until the year's over, we can't express an opinion, but we feel it's consistent. So all in all, I think, as John has mentioned, a good report. Just some of the highlights, and this is on page Roman numeral 13, is that management discussion analysis talks about that your assets exceeded your liabilities by $54,545,000. That's basically in the business world would be your equity. Now that does include the infrastructure, the capital assets, less the debt. So it's more of a long-term perspective. If you're looking at it from the governmental funds standpoint, you had an ending fund balance of almost $30 million, which was a slight decrease from this past year. That doesn't include the expenditures out of the capital projects fund, which is what that purpose of that fund. You accumulate dollars and spend. So, the Village Hall project was being wrapped up, and you're starting on the, some of the other projects, regarding the recreation facilities. So that's, if you look at just the operating fund, you actually had, and this would be on page 6, your general fund, which is primarily where the general business of the village is transacted, is that before any transfers, you had a $546,000 surplus. You did transfer out money into the rec fund to help fund the projects, but from an operational standpoint, you did have a positive surplus, and even after the transfer, you did increase the general fund balance. The rest of the management discussion analysis talks about the funds. There's a comparison between this year and last year, showing that your total assets did increase, and that your net position, or as I refer to, your equity did increase. So, all positive indicators. I think, John does a real nice job of going through and explaining a lot of the activities. There's some charts in there. So I think as a reader, if you're not a finance person, just reading the MD&A will give you a real good flavor of what happened this past year. The financial statements follow, and basically it's just more detailed. The entity-wide or combined statements are on pages 1 and 2, and that's what I mentioned before with that net position. Then beginning on 3 is the fund financial statements, and each individual fund is listed, and then the revenues and expenditures follow. There's a comparison to the budget for the general fund on pages 9 and 10. You can see that your expenditures actually were under budget by $371,000 this past year for the general fund. I think again that's something that's very important to note. The balance of the budgetary comparisons continue, and then page 17 begins the notes of the financial statement. And these start out with explaining your accounting policies, and then just a couple quick items to point out in the notes are your cash and investments. Anything that was rated was AAA rated and was relatively short maturity. As interest rates are starting to climb, you're starting to get some benefit. And again, you don't want to get caught in a real long-term position if rates are increasing. So I think the way that the monies are invested is very appropriate for the environment and the interest rates that we're dealing with. Your capital assets are on page 26. And as you can see, there was a little bit of construction in progress at the end of the year, $240,000, but a good chunk of that for the building, again, the Village Hall project was transferred into service during the year. As far as long-term debt, that's on page 27. There's a schedule showing what the repayment schedule is. So by 2023, the current debt outstanding will be retired. And really, your only other debt then relates to the pension liability, which is your obligation with IMRF for the employees, and then the compensated absences for any time that's earned but unpaid. And speaking of IMRF, there's quite an extensive discussion beginning on page 29 regarding the status of the fund and of all the municipal or state employee pension funds, IMRF is probably the strongest of all the funds. You know, it's showing that at the end of December of 16, which is the most current information available, your net pension liability was $671,000. And actually, there's a comparison on page 35 that shows the last 3 years. So that number has increased some, but you know, relatively speaking, it's still a reasonable amount. You're showing that you're almost 70% funded at the end of 16, which is you know, a lot of the other state pension funds are in much worse shape. So that's just, you know, again, kind of explaining what the situation. And as far as your contributions to the fund, you paid everything that you're required, and IMRF adjusts the contribution rate based upon that potential liability. So, I mean, the village is doing everything it's supposed to do relative to that. After the footnotes, there's just some of the non-major funds or some of the smaller funds. There's the same comparison that we saw in the front with the comparison with the budget and the prior year numbers. And then the last part of the report gets into the statistical section, which has 5 categories of 10-year trend information, you know, regarding financial trends, revenue, debt, some demographics and operating information. And this is another part of the statement that's not required, but makes it a comprehensive financial report. So I think, you know, it becomes a much more usable document. So if somebody wants to come in and get a snapshot of what is, you know, the village all about, this is a real good place to start. So I think, you know, as it started off, you know, Mary, you mentioned a good report. Yeah, you know, again, I think it was another solid year. Are there any questions regarding the numbers before I get into our other letter to you? Okay, if not, there was an additional report that we provide as part of the outgrowth of the audit. The financial statements tell you how numerically things turned out. This is telling you how did the audit process and were there any issues. And I think this is important for you as a board to know that, you know, during the audit there were no significant audit findings. There were no corrected or uncorrected misstatements that we feel that need to be addressed. That, you know, really everything was as we had anticipated. You know, John and his staff, you know, they do a real nice job of getting all the information together. Any questions, you know, are all resolved. All the information, you know, if we have a request is provided without any trouble. And probably one of the most telling things is that at the last part of that letter is a copy of the journal entries that had to be made as part of the audit. And there are basically 4 adjusting journal entries, and actually, and really 3 out of the 4 were items that were identified after the trial balance was closed by John and his staff. So, you know, for an operation of your size to only have 4 journal entries, I think that right there tells me things are as they should be, which I think then the monthly information, you know, the treasurer's report, the information you're provided on a monthly basis is consistent with what's shown in the final audit. Because you don't want to be going along all year and thinking one thing, then all of a sudden the audit comes along and to have to reclassify and you know, adjust a lot of things, and the results are significantly different. So it's important that, you know, I think, if anything, if that's, you know, the one item that I would look at is, you know, are there a lot of adjustments? And anything that's on that sheet that's referred to as GASB 34, that's just to get those entity statements in the front. So it's not something that would be on your books anyway. So, you know, those don't really count in the process. So from our perspective, I think the audit again was a real you know, fine process. You know, we do quite a few of these, and this is probably one of the smoother processes. I think you know John is you know, has the history and has the experience and does a real nice job of getting everything together. And you know, from our perspective, it went very well. So if there are any questions regarding the audit process that I could answer.
Any questions, Rick? Just as usual, thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure, as I said. You know, it's not always the way I we do a lot of these presentations this time of year, and they're not always as positive as this one. So I compliment you on your efforts and you know, again, keeping things going. The comprehensive annual financial report, I think, is a strong statement that you're committed to the finances and reporting. So if there are questions that do come up, regarding this or at any time, if we can help, I would hope that you would give us a call and see what we can do for you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you, John. Wonderful job.
Thank you. And of course, we'll upload this to our transparency website. So we keep 5 years on record.
All right.
Okay?
And then we'll take a roll call for everyone now that you've heard the audit report. We will call for acceptance.
Sure. Trustee Grant?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Nancy Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. To consider for approval number 17, an ordinance granting a variance to permit solid fence in the corner side yard and increasing maximum height for the proposed corner side yard fence in the R5 single-family residential district from 4 feet to 6 feet. Chapter 220 zoning of the Code of the Village of Glen, to 15650 South Badger Lane, Glen, Illinois.
So moved.
Trustee Gray, Trustee Gabriel. Discussion.
I believe the petitioner is here. She wanted to say anything, and I have comments too.
Okay. Just in case she has a question. No. If you come up to the podium, and Trustee Sweet, go ahead.
Well, I don't like giving an approval for a non-conforming 6-foot fence, but what is your, I know you told the plan commission about bus stops. I did not see any bus stop near your house.
There's a bus stop on the corner of Badger and Meadowview. There's actually the Meadowview subdivision, Unit 1, has 117 homes, and there are 4 bus stops within this unit, and then actually 3 of them are within a block and a half of my house. There's a bus stop on the corner of my house. I do have a picture.
No, that bus just parks there because I watched it and I didn't see any students. No students were on that bus. What it did, it waited for a certain schedule and then took off down the block and picked up students about 6 houses down. So I don't know if that was just, it just sits there waiting for a certain schedule. There was no students there, but that's not the point. I do not think going 6 inches off of the sidewalk is appropriate. And I don't think bringing that, there's a hill there on Meadowview, bringing that fence to the front of your house. I think, in my opinion, you have a brick wall back there. If you butt that fence up to that brick wall, which is only about 2 feet off, but at least that's off of the sidewalk a little bit, and you bring your fence to the back of your house, or maybe if you wanted to cover the air conditioner, I would not approve going to the front of the house because I think you're blocking off too much of the view as cars are, because you have a long side yard there. And having a fence so close, you're blocking off. I think it's a public safety issue as far as car traffic. So if I don't know.
Are you opposed to going 2 feet off of this? You only want 6 inches, or you're okay with going 2 feet off of the section?
2 feet.
Well, I guess one of my questions would be, if you were to go 6 inches or less than 2 feet, how would you landscape it? How would you keep that, trim the grass area? But if you're okay with going 2 feet, and she said she's fine with 2 feet.
Right, so at least it gives more of a view when you're looking down Meadowview.
And what's the deal with the bus stop? I mean, who is it?
Look, I actually have pictures of kids getting on the bus there. It stops there every morning. And
What's the? You have a dog, I
right? Yeah, there's increased traffic, foot traffic, lots of kids in the morning, lots of kids in the afternoon. I have a big dog. She's a shepherd mix. She scares the children. I don't want any incidences where the kids have to cross the street because there's a dog. you know, they're gonna cross the street, get hit by a car, and then anytime they walk by, she barks and they get scared, they walk the other direction. I mean, it's everybody's sidewalk, and they should have the right to enjoy it.
Which would make more sense to keep the fence further away from the sidewalk, so kids can at least walk down the sidewalk at least 2 feet.
That's fine.
I guess the second issue is the fence being up to the front of the house. Are you opposed to having it right in front of the air conditioner unit, which is behind your front window, up the side of the house, the first double window?
I mean, I would prefer to have it a little closer to the front of the house, because we're trying to maximize the yard for the dog. She is big and she is young, she's only 12 months.
I think what Sharon's concern in mind as well would be if we allowed a 6-foot fence up to the front of your house, it wouldn't be blocking a lot of the view from the street, especially since there's a hill there, and with children walking to a possible bus stop or not bus stop, it could cause some visual issues for drivers or people walking to the stop.
And then the hill isn't even that steep, it's a slight steep going up, it's not a big hill.
I'll also just add in that by code, there's a triangle of unobstructed view at the intersection of the street. It's 25 feet both ways, and so if the fence were to match the front building line of the home itself, that would still be at least 20 feet from that unobstructed triangle.
6 feet?
Say
The
again?
fence being 6 feet fully closed rather than
Right, this is referring to the placement though, just strictly the placement of the fence itself,
not the height.
not the height, right? I'm just saying it would be 20 feet further back from the required 25 feet. of
So it's actually
unobstructed view.
45 feet away. There's a 45 feet view now.
Right.
Okay. Instead of a 25-foot view, which is required.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to say, I agree with trustee Nancy Turkey and trustee Sweets. I think that it should move back off the front of the house. It's a 6-foot fence that far forward is gonna look kind of stockade-ish, and it's gonna look like more of a barrier than a privacy fence. So I'd be okay with moving it back, like you said, either to the back of the house, or if you want to still have some side yard that's fenced in, split the difference by the air conditioner. Still going ahead with 6 feet and keeping it 2 feet off the sidewalk.
Or at least to the, I didn't measure where that brick. you have
There's
like
a
landscape.
there's a brick wall there, so to butt it up against, that's a foot or 2 feet, but at least push it back a little.
Yeah, so however the distance is from that. I mean, we'd like to work with you, I just want to, look at everyone's interest.
Right, I mean, just so you guys know, there's 13 other properties within the Meadowview subdivision with the same, I mean, actually, they're almost on the sidewalk, 6-foot close fences.
Right, but those are probably grandfathered in from before incorporation, or they were, half of them, some of them were repaired and they just stayed in the same place. That's why they're like that.
I guess my biggest concern is with the closeness to the sidewalk with the.
Yeah, that actually doesn't bother me, that doesn't, just, if it could be closer to the front of the house, because we're cutting a lot of yard.
I agree with you, 2 feet in,
At least to be, wherever that landscape barrier is.
because I agree with you, any kid walking down the street with it being a completely black fence. Oh, I saw Christine's picture. With them walking down the street and or down the sidewalk, not seeing the dog, all of a sudden the dog went out to the fence, because I've got 2 monsters too that they were married, but they bark like nuts. So we'll be coming in 2 feet off the sidewalk.
Right in front of
Yeah, whatever the
see
number
that
is.
brick wall as part of the backyard?
Yeah.
So up to that brick wall, and then we did 2 lines by the air conditioner or to the back of the house. If you're willing to do that, you probably can get an approval, if not.
So that would be up to you, because they need to vote on it now, so.
We could do the air conditioning, that's fine.
And I think she should check with building before they put the fence up to make sure it's in that, area.
We'll
Then you'll go out there and work.
we'll require a
Well,
drawing.
it would, because it's going to be changing the way the ordinance is written right now.
Okay.
So, all right, so, Keith, you have to change the, you have to take back the motion right now, or can we leave the motion in place and just change it?
They can add, whoever made the motion can add, subject to the 2 foot.
Trustee Barry, you know,
I'd like to amend my motion to move the fence off the sidewalk to either line up with the existing landscaping that's there or 2 feet, whichever makes more sense, as well as to split the front of the fence to go only halfway up the side of the house between the window and the air conditioner.
You're okay. So we need the second.
I'll second that.
okay, so we've had discussion, Trustee Barry, just so you will know, we're talking about the fence, and they made 2 changes to it. One aside from, well, you know what, Christie can show you, it'll be a lot easier. So, yeah, clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Gabriel?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Barry?
Aye.
Trustee Maxey-Trick?
Aye.
Motion carries. You're okay to get it done now. The village will work with you, Joe, will let you know what has to be done and can make the changes. Next is our motion to approve resolution number 17-008, a resolution adopting the Will County Bikeway for the village of Homer Glen, Will County, Illinois.
I so move.
Trustee Sweet. Any second?
Second?
Trustee Gray, discussion?
Mayor, I can't see in the back. Is Corey Crawford here? Oh, Corey, she is with Will County, and I didn't know if she's with the bike plan. And I didn't know if you wanted to say a few things, or if anybody had questions.
Sure, I can give a little background if you have a few minutes. Thanks for having me tonight. So I'm with the Forest Preserve District of Will County.
Can you talk into the mic
Oh.
more?
Sure, no problem. So I'm with the Forest Preserve District of Will County. You might be maybe wondering why the Forest Preserve District has created a countywide bikeway plan. Many years in the making, since I've been with the district for over 13 years, we've always facilitated with regional bikeway projects. DuPage River Trail, we work with the different agencies to help facilitate, bikeway planning in the region. And it's always been something that we've wanted to do, is to have some sort of countywide plan, a regional plan, where the agencies will know the direction of, those major regional trails, so that local entities can, work together and not come into situations where their trails maybe don't line up, and also be able to acquire different grant opportunities. And so we had the opportunity to work with the Will County Division of Transportation during their 2040 transportation planning effort the Will County Bikeway Plan was adopted into their transportation plan, and we recognized 15 corridors in Will County, 2 of which are in the village of Homer Glen. And so we also started a bikeway commission, and that's where we wanted to kind of get the different agencies on board and help with the bikeway planning. This plan isn't necessarily a plan that the Forest Preserve District is going to be implementing. There's pieces that are in there that we would implement, but it's planned for all the towns in Will County to connect into and to work together in the future. So if you have any questions on specifics related to the village or our efforts that we've made so far.
She had spoken at the Parks meeting, and the committee had a consensus of approving this, and we're all excited about it, so.
That's correct.
All right, well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no other discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Maxey-Trick?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Barron?
Aye. Motion carries. I-4, is there a motion to consider to approve professional service agreement with Northern Illinois University Center for Governmental Studies for strategic planning services in the amount of $15,750?
So moved.
Trustee Trady? Second. Trustee Burden, discussion?
Well, I do have a comment, Mayor. I feel like it's reinventing the wheel a little bit, because if you look at some of the samples that the other villages, towns did, there is so much in here that we are going to be using. SWOT analysis for strengths, financial growth, management, community involvement. It's like our game book is right here. So I may be missing the point of having somebody point this out to us when it's all in a package for us. Plus, we spent a lot of money for this resident survey, and according to this, they're going to do another online survey. So I don't understand why would we have to pay for another survey as well. But that's my opinion.
That was my same question. Because we seem to do it every year. Trustee Gabriel?
You know, I just, sometimes these are great things to do, and they're tools that we need to depict where we're going with our future. I think Brian said it best in our last meeting about getting a strategic plan in place so we can move forward with the things we want to do as we grow. I think they're necessities. I think there's some things in these plans that are just, pretty canned information, but they're the experts. They've done it in communities that surround us. I'd just like to know if anybody talked to those communities specifically and thought that their strategic plan came out better than anticipated, mediocre. I don't know what the thoughts were from the surrounding communities that have done this. There's a lot of consultants in the world and a lot of consultants who make money, so I'm not opposed to it if it's beneficial to us at the end of the day.
I'm just saying that we have the game book right here. So, there is so much in here that, okay, somebody's going to come in and ask us for strengths and weaknesses. Everything that these other suburbs have already done are right in front of us. I mean, you could almost do your own SWOT analysis.
Yeah, at the end of the day, these are only as good as you implement. So if we don't implement anything from our findings, we wasted $13,750.
And we've got the study that we did, but we haven't implemented anything with yet. So maybe we'll find out whether we can choose if we can put on something else.
So first of all, the online survey itself is optional. You don't have to do that. It can be taken out. But the benefit of having somebody come in and take a look at that community.
Can you talk into, since I don't think they hear.
The addition of, or the benefit of having someone come in and pull together the information from the survey, someone who has experience looking at that and telling us how we can take those suggestions and move further down the road with that. That's an expertise that it's honed, and I think it would benefit this community because, yes, we have this guidebook of information, but now what? So that's what this person would do. They would come in and help us get to that next step.
I don't disagree that can be done. My fear is that maybe we're doing it too early in the game. I don't know that we've identified, let's get past 150 next year, let's do some other things and figure out who we're going to be when we grow up a little more. Just my opinion.
I think that's what the biggest point of this is to help us figure out what we want to be when we grow up, right? So we're ahead of the game and also have something to hold ourselves accountable against. And so I made most of these comments at the last meeting. I'm glad that this is before us tonight because I'd really like to move forward on this. And I think this was a discussion that we had collectively when we agreed to make the expenditure. I'm not saying we made a decision on this. I'm saying that we had a discussion when we agreed to make the expenditure to do the community survey. That was step one, which is why the money for this is in the budget that we passed earlier this year. So this isn't something that we just thought about in the last month or at the last meeting. This is something that, in my world, I would have probably been, if we weren't going to do the next step of strategic planning, I'm not sure that I would have been as supportive to spend money on the survey, to just look at data and take from it what we all want to take. That's one component of this. But when you look through the planning of this is not something that a consultant comes in for a week, and I agree on consultants in general. This is something that takes months and months with hours of not only a community forum, online survey being optional, and we can debate the value of that, but board input on this to the tune of 8-10 hours, right? To help us, and I think the advantage to having a professional that does this is to help us take our ideas between the board, the mayor, and the community and put those goals on paper for Homer Glen, specific to Homer Glen. I did talk to 3 village managers and their references about whether this was a worthwhile endeavor for them, and all 3 of them said that yes, they thought it was a valuable exercise for their village and would recommend it, and would recommend Mr. Rapp. So to me, I think this is a good second step for us to help us. This isn't just about construction on 159th or what we. This is holistic and give us a set of concrete goals that we not only we can hold ourselves accountable, but residents can then hold us accountable to our own goals.
Excuse me, I just have a question. With the online survey that the village sent out last year, how successful was that? I mean, did you get a lot of responses? Weren't there supposed to be 1,500 of them sent out?
Yeah.
And I understand that this is supposed to be, you know, between the board and the consultant and, you know, the population of Homer Glen, but out of 1,500 surveys that were sent out, what was your rate of success as far as answering?
We had about 500 responses. It was about a 30% response rate, which is really good for that type of survey.
Okay.
We also had an optional opt-in survey that anyone could do, and that was reported on separately. But overall, it was a very good response.
Okay, but out of, what, 22,000 people?
Well, it was supposed to be just a targeted segment of the community to get different sections of it, so that it wasn't just one subdivision being hit or 2 subdivisions. It was just it was pieced throughout the entire community. So that sampling,
22,000, you know, that's children and that kind of stuff. But I'm just saying, is there going to be another effort to contact people in the community to try to get a bigger response across the board?
well, we
As to
also
what, you know, what their ideas were. That's all.
Sean did put in the paper, and it was successful. They did explain that if you didn't receive a letter regarding opting into the survey as one of those 1,500, you could take the online survey, and we did have some responses from that. So what this would do, though, is take the information from that survey and push it forward so that staff and the board then has goals to work toward, and we've got the community's input so that we are all on the same page, and we've got 3 years, 2 to 3 years to get those goals moving.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you, Brian. I think that we do need something like this. I just think maybe it's early in the game for me. I'm fine with doing something like this. I've been in the corporate world for a long time where these exercises come in, go out the window, and into the circular file, and nobody implements. If we have implementation, I think it's great.
I don't disagree on that, right? It's up to us to implement.
Yeah.
So I think that may be where it tends to fall apart. It's not in the strategic planning, it's then implementing it after it, and that's up to us up here to make sure we follow through on that. One other quick point is, I think when we talk about we've done some of this, we did do stakeholder meetings on Heritage Park and things like this. This is different than just
This is not one project.
This is going forward as a village, and the only thing I would say with regards to the survey that we did earlier this year, we originally discussed doing something less informally and something that would be certainly less money to conduct, but it wasn't going to be scientific. And so if we were going to start this process and go through this process, it was important to me to make sure that what we're doing is scientific, so it's not just within the bubble of people that typically participate in these things. And Sean's right, a 30% participation for this sort of survey is very high. And I think we were very pleased with that. And that portion was a mailed-in or a paper survey that lots of time and effort went into that too. That wasn't just cookie cutter. So we've done that portion. We made that expenditure. There's really valuable data in that. It's now taking that, and I would just say on the timing-wise, the longer that we wait, that data gets old for step 2. It becomes less useful. And I would say, and I made this example when we discussed this in committee, part of my professional life is I've worked with polling. And in it, so when we talk about 25,000 people in town and a survey of 500 respondents and then the online overlay, so in a state senate district, which is what I'm familiar with, in a state senate district of about 220,000 people, when we're making decisions that are millions of dollar decisions, we are comfortable making those decisions based off of a sample size of 300 and sometimes 400 respondents in 220,000 person areas. So when you take 500 and it's done scientifically, and not just those that choose to respond, but even the 500 that responded are then weighted, and so that we get a good cross-section of geographic, income levels, and everything else. So that data, it's not just a survey that we just sort of put our thumbs in the air. There is science behind that survey, and that's why I think it's so
I'm not
important.
arguing with you. I just wanted to know what the success was, you know.
Exactly, and I don't think you're
You can send out 1,500, and if 14 people answer, you know, what...
Sure. If we would have had 100 respond, I would have probably been supportive of sending this company back out to get that response level up. But 500 out of 24,000 residents, and you're right, some of the, a good portion of those are children, and from a scientific side, this is a strong survey that, again, in my opinion, we use as step 1, we go to step 2. And let's do that as a community. And a portion of this certainly isn't just the board and the mayor. It is community involvement and stakeholder feedback that I don't believe at this level has been done anytime recently. It's been done on specific projects, but not looking at this village as a whole.
I really hate following Brian when I have a comment to make, because I feel like you just said everything I said. But one thing you didn't mention that I got is I think if we do this too, hopefully it will help out the current businesses that are struggling right now with the 159th construction. Maybe from this survey we can find out what it is that the community really wants and the businesses really want to help the businesses and help the community as a whole together. So, and like Brian said, which I hate saying that, yeah, I think when we did step 1, we have to do step 2 to execute the full project in the whole. Thank you, Brian.
And I would agree with what everybody has said. And just to go along with the theme of what do we want to be when we grow up, this is like going to see the guidance counselor. This is, the study told us all of their options, basically. And this is now having the guidance counselor come in and really nail all of those down and say, if you really want to do this, you're not going to be able to do certain other things. Where are your priorities and everything? So to say it's early, I mean, obviously I'm only here a few months. The village is not that old, really, when we think about it. We really don't know what we want to be when we grow up. I can see, this being a tool for an older village that maybe has lost its way, trying to get them back on track. We need to find that track to start with. So I think this is a good opportunity to start with. So.
Anything else? Yeah. Madam Clerk, you want to call the roll?
Trustee Barron?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Nasby-Turkey?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
No.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve an administrative hearing officer fee agreement with Ryan Law LLC? It is understood that the village will be billed $190 per hour for travel time and for work related to the administration hearing officer's duties. And what this is about, gentlemen, is handing off the court hearings here in the village, the adjudication, moved from one company to another company. So it's the same person doing it, and he's very familiar with what we're doing and how we do it, and he's very fair with his prices. So with that, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
discussion.
I had just a couple of questions that I had gotten answered, but I'd like to share them with everybody. The only thing I had asked was if we were currently and have historically paid travel time, and I was told we always have, and that's not an issue for me. The only thing I'd like to say is that at some future point, I think that even though Mr. Donut's, his last name Arenik, has been doing it for a long time, this probably should go out for, a request for a proposal or a quote even. And there is a point in there where he says until the hourly rates change based in the kind of legal community, maybe that'd be a good point to revisit that. I'm sure we'll probably go back to him, but it's always good to keep that up above board.
Never hurts to
Right.
compare examples.
Right.
Okay. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Max-Kachorki?
Aye.
Trustee Barry?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is our motion to approve the settlement agreement between Vince Bianco, Hunt Club Meadows LLC, and the Village of Homer Glen in the amount of $57,000.
So moved.
Trustee Gabriel?
I'll second.
Trustee Turkey? Discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Max-Kachorki?
Aye.
Trustee Barry?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is a motion to accept the bid proposal for Aries Inc. to complete drainage improvements within the Aaron Hill subdivision in the Village of Homer Glen in the amount of $151,102.
So moved.
Trustee Barry?
Second.
Trustee Gray? Discussion?
Just to clarify, did you say 51 or 151?
$151,102.
I thought I heard. My usual clock.
Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Barry?
Aye.
Trustee Max-Kachorki?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, is there a motion to approve the engineering agreement for Christopher Burke Engineering Ltd. for construction engineering services related to Aaron Hill subdivision drainage improvement project for the not to exceed amount of $13,300.
So moved.
Trustee Gabriel,
I'll second.
trustee Sweet, discussion. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Max-Kachorki?
Aye.
Trustee Barry?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Next, is there any old business? Is there any new business? I need a motion to go into executive session for purposes of discussing litigation 5 ILCS.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Barry?
Aye.
Trustee Max-Kachorki?
Aye.
Executive is for discussion only. There will be no voting done. We